From the OUTV Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, California, this is Brief News Brief, a brief look at today's trending news topics, proudly combating the thought police since 2016. Here's your host, James Heaney.
I'm James Heaney, and this is your Brief News Briefing. The North Korea summit was last night. Before the great meeting began, Trump claimed, "My touch and my feel will tell me if the summit is going well. I know within the first minute." So how did it go? Well, Trump made photo op history. They talked over breakfast and over lunch. The events climaxed with the signing of a mystery document. Well, it was a mystery when they signed it, but the details have come out overnight. Kim promised, Pinky swore, to eliminate nuclear weapons from the peninsula. But there's no timeline for this, and there's no verification to back it up. So it could be in like 2050 when they eliminate all the weapons, but even then, you're just going to have to take North Korea's word for it. Trump promised to stop joint military exercises with South Korea, which shocked the South Korean peninsula. Some of the United States' main goals should have been to get an idea of how many nuclear weapons are currently in North Korea, as well as getting a timeline as to when we're going to denuclearize those and what's the reasonable timeline for that accomplishment. Everything should be verifiable too. It looks like we didn't really take a step forward in any of those things. Perhaps they're going to begin to negotiate things going forward, because we got to know what they got. We need a full declaration of their plutonium production, their uranium centrifuges, where they store their warheads, how many warheads they have, and missiles. There's so many unanswered questions after the summit. And to make it worse, afterwards, Trump stated in a news conference following the signing, "In 6 months, I might say, hey, I was wrong about North Korea denuclearization, but I don't think I'd ever admit that." Gross. This past weekend was the G7 summit in Canada, and Donald Trump made quite the appearance. Some might call it a diplomatic debacle. He kicked off the weekend by showing up late, but not only was his lateness interrupted a women's empowerment meeting that was already in session. Awkward. Then he questioned why Russia, his best buddy, hadn't been invited. Not fair. But Trump acted fairly agreeable through the weekend until he got on his plane to leave, and that's when he started a snotty tweet storm, taking shots at Canada. Make new friends and insult the old. Donald Trump's like showers of gold. Trump was mad at Trudeau because just after Trump left the Canadian summit, the Prime Minister held a press conference in which he vowed that the tariffs that Trump created on Canadian goods, which make up no economical sense from any perspective, would be met with appropriate countermeasures. I can only imagine those countermeasures would be counter-tariffs, right? In a remarkable appearance on CNN's State of the Union Sunday morning, Trump economic advisor Larry Kudlow made Trudeau sound like he was a dictator. Then Peter Navarro went further on Fox News. "There's a special place in hell for any foreign leader that engages in bad faith diplomacy with President Donald J. Trump and then tries to stab him in the back on the way out the door. That's what bad faith Justin Trudeau just did with that stunt press conference." It's clearer than ever that Trump feels more affinity to strong men who speak the language of threats than with allies who he believes, evidence be damned, are trying to screw him over at every turn. But it turns out Navarro stepped back his comments and apologized for using the strong language of saying there's a special place in hell. According to an NRA source, several prominent Russians, including some within the President Vladimir Putin's inner circle, have now been identified as having made contact with the NRA during the 2016 election campaign. Now, this is coming to light during a deepening Justice Department investigation into a Russian banker and lifetime NRA member, Alexander Torshin, who illegally channeled money through the gun rights group to fund the Trump campaign. Hey, wait a second. I thought Trump used his own money for the campaign. What was that? Was that a lie or something, Trump? I thought you funded your own campaign. Oh, I had so much respect for you. And it's not just Alexander. There are other Russian influencers who met with the NRA during the campaign that are being investigated. The Russians talked and dined with NRA representatives and mainly in Moscow while the presidents were reaching for the White House. Now, U.S. investigators want to know if relationships between the Russian leaders and the nation's largest gun rights group went beyond vodka toasts and gun factory tours. They're evoking more investigations into the Russians' meddling of the 2016 election. Yesterday marked the official end of net neutrality. Net neutrality was the Obama-era regulations that said internet providers cannot block or slow down websites or prioritize their website content over other website contents. Broadband providers are now going to enjoy additional freedoms to seek new ways of making money in a rapidly changing market. Now, wait a second, James. Isn't this old news? Didn't you tell us about the end of net neutrality way back in December? Well, yeah, but even though the votes occurred months ago, it took this amount of time for the results to take effect. That's why the rules are only now expiring. Many internet providers such as AT&T and Verizon have said that they do not and will not block or slow content. Comcast has also said that it does not or doesn't block or slow content. It has no plans to offer paid prioritization. Scouts Honor, they are gonna be good. Don't you worry about a thing. Don't worry about a thing. They promise that what's more likely to occur are subtle changes to your internet experience that you may or may not even notice occur. It's hard to say what specific changes you might experience or not notice experiencing, because part of the whole point of undoing the net neutrality rules is that internet providers will begin to experiment with business models that we haven't seen before. The Senate has already passed a bill that would overturn the end of net neutrality. Thank goodness, right? But at the moment, it's not going to pass the House, and even if it did pass the House, not in a million years would Trump sign it. Some supporters of the resolution to overturn the end of net neutrality, to not end it, the people that want net neutrality to remain, say that this is going to be a driving force of voters in the polls in this year's midterm elections. So you got to get out and make your voice heard if this is important to you. What's the new hot summer gadget this summer? Well, flamethrowers. Well, actually, no, excuse me. They are not flamethrowers, or that's what they're called, because apparently it's only illegal to sell something called a flamethrower. It can still shoot flames and be called not a flamethrower and somehow get around that regulation. On Saturday, Elon Musk's Boring Company got its $500 flamethrowers. Let's just call them what they are. They are throwing flames into the hands of consumers. The first 1,000 were distributed here in Los Angeles, to which people formed long lines to get their hands on the very first of them. I can't pick a better place than Southern California to have flaming throwing devices. The company has sold 20,000 of the machines. Musk tweeted what he claimed was the terms and conditions for the machines. Required: I will not use this in a house. I will not point this at my spouse. I will not use this in an unsafe way. The best use is creme brulee. Some have criticized the sale of the not a flamethrower to the general public, viewing it as a major safety risk. With 20,000 new flamethrowers now in circulation and expecting more flamethrowing to be displayed on social media, my only response is that now that there are flamethrowers out there in the wild, the only way to stop a bad flamethrower user is a good guy with a flamethrower. So everybody's got to get one now.